She's an amazing tram, isn't she?
Lovely tram. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So have you ever worked on her?
This was one of the first ones I worked on after I was passed out as a conductor. So,
Wow,
and I think it's the one I've probably worked more than any since,
really?
mainly during the illuminations, of course.
Gosh, so I bet that means you're in lots of photographs.
Oh yes, yes. There's one what was taken on the King's coronation where I was just stood by this door, and Gary Mitchell, one of our photographers, just took a really good photograph of me
Oh,
with a crown on my head.
oh,
Uh,
brilliant! Yeah, just
yeah,
captured the
yeah,
moment perfectly. So how do
perfect.
the doors open on this then? This is
Right,
a,
if
this is
it's
a
not already done so, which it isn't, you have a little bolt.
Oh, you see,
There
you've
we are.
already taught me something. Brilliant, excellent. Well, after you, Andy. After
Okay.
you, brilliant. So, welcome everybody to this episode of Tram Chats, and I'm delighted to bring a very special person to these conversations we're having, and it's the incredible Andy. And I first met Andy online, actually, a long time ago.
Yeah,
Andy's passion for transport is key because he brings people together. But I've met him a lot recently because you are a volunteer, Andy, if I'm
that's
right in
correct.
speaking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what sort of things do you do for us and the team?
Right. On the volunteer front, I'm one of the conductors of the Heritage Tram fleet. Quite a number of us now and growing. We've got a few new starters joining the team as well, which is always welcome. Been doing it now just under 2 years. It was one of these things I've wanted to do for a number of years and kept umming and ahhing, and then COVID came along and that put a stop to everything, of course. Then it got to 2021, the advert came out again, still umming and ahhing. I thought, do I, don't I? And my wife was getting fed up with me saying, going on about it, and she says, just do it, will you?
Yeah.
So it's actually getting close to the closing date
Uh,
for applications. So I contacted Martin, says I'm interested in applying. He said, right, he said, I'll send you an application, I'll get it sent off immediately. So I did that. And then, of course, had the interview and the test and so on. And I thankfully passed all that and started in September 2021,
wow.
just roughly at the start of the illuminations, which was probably very convenient, of course, because that's always our busiest time of year.
Yes. Yeah.
So my very first duty after training was on the HMS frigate on an illuminations night. Of course, I had a few runs, practice runs with mentors and so on, and they ensured that I was fit to be let loose on my own.
Yeah.
And then my actual first duty on my own was on this very tram.
Wow.
uh,
And for viewers, we like to encourage every guest that comes and does one of these interviews, that chance to choose the tram that we do the interview on.
mhm.
And it's nice because I think everyone has chosen, if I'm right from memory, a different tram. So this is pretty special, isn't it?
Yeah,
Pretty special.
yes,
I
it's
can, I
sort
can see why you wanted to do it on here.
yeah, it's sort of my proper baptism after being let loose on my own, if you will.
Oh, I can imagine. So what is your role then, Andy? What is it
Right, the
you do?
role obviously, I mean, safety is paramount at all times. So we have to ensure that the tram is safe for departure,
Yeah,
liaise with the driver, identify any problems that should occur, which from time to time unfortunately do.
yeah,
Ensure the passengers are briefed accordingly and that they don't do anything that they shouldn't. Of course, you've got things like the changing of the points at the
mm,
necessary junctions. You have to look out for people that maybe, certainly on this tram, we unfortunately do get them sometimes trying to jump on the back.
yes,
So you
yeah,
have to ensure that that doesn't happen, and if it does, alert the driver immediately. With some of our trams, of course, like the open boat trams and the Bolton car, we also have the trolley as opposed to the pantograph. So if we're stopping at places not on a loop, we have to get out
yep,
and turn
yep,
the trolley around and ensure that that's engaging to the wires and so on. So yeah, it's a varied job. It's not just a case of checking the tickets, which of course that's another thing, making sure everyone has got a ticket to travel. and that. So you've got the revenue side of things.
Yeah.
So it is varied, and I like meeting the people. I mean, unlike the normal service, people on these generally are here because they want to travel on these.
Yeah.
Whether it be an illuminations tour or one of our daytime coastal or promenade tours. So they're more keen as being a visitor, and that's what they see. They see this as an attraction in the town.
Yeah, definitely. It, of all the trams, I've noticed. So we've um, as you know, with Tramtown, been working on a lot of funding bids in partnership with the council. This tram of all the trams is the one that the council get, and I think that's reflected on all the marketing for the
Mm.
illuminations. It's always the Western train, isn't
Yeah,
it?
whenever you see the video shoots for the town, this is the one they like to use. I know I saw it on something a few weeks ago. I think it was just after the King's coronation. They had it out in the evening for, I think it was for the fireworks display, and it was like a link up around the country. And yes, it was the Western train that you could see
Yeah,
going past the tower. And
absolutely.
it's the one what I think the children like probably the most. This one and the rocket, but of course,
Yeah,
unfortunately, the rocket's no longer available for use.
and it does, doesn't it? It connects into people's view of Blackpool, their happiest moments, and brings out that inner 5 year old. But this is crucial because these are the movers and shakers in the town.
Mm.
They may not get trams, but they definitely get this one.
That's it. And when you tell them, I like to tell people how old they are, and of course this rear vehicle is close on 100 years old, 1928.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, the front one's slightly younger, but not by much. They can't believe how nearly
oh
100 years on,
yeah,
and also the fact with this one as well, it so nearly went for scrap, but it was thanks to the lottery bid that we got
oh
a few years
absolutely.
ago.
And what a loss to not just Blackpool but the UK if it had been
Mm,
lost. It is that important, isn't it,
absolutely,
to
yeah,
our culture? What I like about it is that it looks very much like it does on the outside. It feels like you are on a in a train.
yeah. Well, and a lot of these fittings are pretty much the originals
Yeah,
from when it was built,
it
when it was
is.
a pantograph car.
Wow.
Well,
And your role, I guess, then as a guard or a conductor, as many people call them, you probably be the tourism guy, the only person they may see a fish in an official role
oh
whilst
yeah,
they're on holiday in Blackpool. It would be yourself.
yeah, yeah. You do sort of become a bit of a tourist information centre. One thing I do like to do is point particular features out.
Yeah.
On depending what the tour is, will depend what I point out. Uh, Things like Uh, for example, what should I say about something like the miners' home? A lot of people say, "What's that big red brick building?" And
Yeah.
so I've started telling them about what the miners' home was there for, and about it
Mm.
used to be run by the coal board, and what it is now. I always try and make point of the Strand Hotel, of course, which is famous for the Alan Bradley incident.
Yeah, which is just over there, isn't
Yeah, they
it?
are.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
even say to them because I like to plug the other tours and beaches they do, and I tell them about Tramtown,
Yeah.
and I always say, those of you who like Coronation Street, you now have the chance to have your picture taken with the Alan Bradley tram. So
Yeah.
it's not quite in the state that it was then, but we are, going to be at least making it cosmetically reconditioned in the coming months. So that always gets their attention. Oh, wouldn't mind looking at Tramtown just to see the Alan Bradley tram.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've even had one
Definitely.
or two say, "I'm able to lie down in front of it and pretend." It's up to you, right? If you want
Yeah.
to get oily.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oily and wet. Take absolutely you can. No, it's and what many people don't realise actually, and you said it there, is actually that people who drive the heritage and illuminated trams and guard them, they're volunteers, aren't they? A
Yeah, we're
massive role that people play.
all volunteers, and that's another thing when you tell the public that you're volunteers, they can be quite often taken aback,
Yeah, yeah.
and also it can diffuse situations at times.
Ah,
If you've had somebody who's maybe a little bit disgruntled because you've been maybe delayed, especially in the illuminations, you can
ah,
get delayed,
yeah,
and they've been a bit grumpy with you when they got on board. As soon as I give that little bit of a spiel and say, that we are all volunteers, the tone tends to change with them
yeah,
because then they appreciate you more. You think, well, you're giving your time for free to keep these running,
yeah,
and to run a tourist attraction.
Yeah,
and something what will be lost otherwise to the town.
absolutely.
So it can really help.
Yeah, it's powerful, isn't it? It's powerful.
It is,
Yeah,
yeah. And as well as being a volunteer, I see myself as an ambassador to the town,
very much so.
because we're probably as well known as Sticks of Rock in the Tower.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. They're unique, aren't they?
They are,
The only
yeah,
place you're going to get it is here
yeah. And I
on the
say that
seaside.
you may have trams in other parts of the country, but you don't have the old trams and the new trams, playing out on the same bits of track,
Yeah,
which again we're quite privileged for.
aren't we just? Aren't we just? And I like the fact, and it's funny that when you started September 21, that was the exact month that we opened Tramtown.
It was, if I recall, one of my shifts when I was being mentored, I think that it was the anniversary weekend, which is always at the end of September, and
Yeah,
I remember a cake being done and that for the official launch
that's
of
right.
Tramtown when you did the grand opening and that. So I think, if I recall, some their dignitaries are around as well
That's it.
for
Yeah,
that day.
and it's all about partnerships. And what I like is the way everybody down here supports each other. So that you've got the Tramtown guys who are busy sort of trying to restore things, clean things, get drains working. Then you've got the operational team who are out there working really hard, getting the trams out, and we've just seen one go out for a private event. And then you've got the engineers, and it does feel like a family, doesn't it?
I think we're a family as well, and it's really good that Blackpool Transport continue to give us that support
Yeah,
and backing to keep this running.
crucial.
And they see the importance that it brings to the town,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's it's very significant. And with all the changes that are taking place, we're within the depot over the next couple of years. How we've been included in that future vision.
Yeah,
You
that's right.
know,
And I mean, there has been a journey really with the council now fully on board. And I say this tram's been right at the forefront of that. Um, we were talking about imagery, but I remember we were working closely with the council about different funding support and how we could do it and different things. And it was when Strictly were here.
hmm
And which tram did they want to arrive and so on? So
it's
yeah, so thank you. And so that's where you are now, and then you've been doing some amazing work. And because I see you as a volunteer down here with the rest of the team, but you're always so happy and engaged, and you can tell you absolutely love what you
Oh, I do.
what you
If it's
do.
going to be my full-time job,
Yeah,
and I was being paid for it, I'd jump at the opportunity.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Yeah, it shows, doesn't it? It shows that we're volunteers, but highly professional and highly enthusiastic. It's
somebody once said to me, he sees us as the most sort of professional volunteers that he's ever seen, if you will.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. Because the level of discipline you talked there, wasn't it, about safety,
Mm.
the safety requirements, the processes you have to do, the training you have to do. It's as high as and as uh, to the high standard as any professional employee would have to,
Yeah,
isn't it? And same with our guys.
yeah. Which it needs to be because of what we're playing with. What affects our miniature trains, light railways
Yeah, that
systems. So
yeah,
we've got to be
exactly.
on the ball,
Yeah,
definitely.
and that definitely comes over. So that's where you are now, but you've got this sort of really rich background. As I say, I met you online, as it were, through your interest in transport on the
hmm
field and the way you brought people together. And we'll have a chat about that in this later. But where did it all start for you?
Where did it all start for me? My youngest memories, probably from when I was about 6 years old. My dad worked on the buses and on the trams.
Oh,
I used to live on Sherborne Road in North Shore, roughly at the junction of not Ashfield, Ashworth Road.
oh yeah,
And in them days, the number 3 bus used to come down that road, and it was always the old double deck PD3 Titans. And I'd always be looking out for my dad on that. He'd tell me if he was on that,
oh
and I'd be stood at the window. And in them days as well, the drivers tended to work with the same conductors all the time.
yeah,
And I always remember the conductor who was called Ray. I used to call him Uncle Ray because I was only a
oh
little lad. And my mum would say to me, "Oh, your dad and Uncle Ray will be coming soon." And I'd go and rush to the front
oh.
garden and wait for him coming down. And and wave at him and so on. And sometimes I'd go out on the bus with him.
Yeah.
I used to like to go out to Staining if ever we were going out there, because another thing I always remember at Staining, in them days, the bus used to it didn't used to quite go into the village. It used to stop at what was, I think it's called a nook, like a bit of a triangular junction.
Ah.
And the bus used to have to reverse. You can imagine that nowadays with passengers.
Oh
You used to have to
yeah.
reverse to get into the stop.
Yeah.
And it was a timing point, and they used to have the clock machines, the old Bundy clocks.
Wow.
And he used to give me his card and say, right, put it in the machine and
Yeah.
press it down so it records the time. And I felt really
Oh, you must felt like a
important.
proper grown up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
being allowed to do that.
Wow.
So they are my earliest memories with my dad. Then, as I got a little bit more interested and a bit more grown up, I would sometimes come out on the trams with him and that. But besides that, I used to often come down here on my bike. We didn't used to have the gates in them days,
Oh yeah.
and they used to let you just go along the apron bit
Oh.
and have a look at the tram. So I used to always be looking which trams were inside the shed, and then over where the old office was, the
Yeah.
foreman were there. And you say, can we have a look what's on the running board,
Oh.
please? Yes, but you don't go anywhere near the pitch.
Oh,
So
brilliant.
he'd always let you have a look at the running board and make a note of things, and you could ask him, what trams are doing what, and he'd tell you in that.
Wow.
So they was really fond memories of coming down here.
What sort of year was
That
that sort of
you're
time? Yeah.
talking about early 80s. So
Yeah.
I was a teenager by then.
Yeah.
We used to just come cycling down here. Let's see what's in the tram shed like and that.
Yeah.
And then another thing I remember as well with my dad, when it was the illuminations, the children of the staff used to always have a free ticket for an
Oh,
illuminations
brilliant.
ride. And I always liked to come on this one or the Rocket.
Yeah.
They were my favourite ones. So they used to let the staff's children board in the depot as well. So if I was on this, I'd always want to make sure I got to the very back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I claimed the balcony bits, and
Oh.
you were allowed to bring a friend as well. You had 2 tickets, so I always brought a friend with me. And in them days, you just used to pick up at North Pier, so you just went straight out of here to North Pier, but you already had the prize position
Yeah.
to
You
be
knew
in.
what you were doing.
So yeah, so that was good. And with me dad, if I was with him, he used to actually take me round the shed because I
Oh.
was with him.
Yeah.
He'd come take me on. Well, let's go and have a look at this tram and that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so on.
And then that must have been incredible. So I imagine early 80s, this would be pre 1986. So this was still a council department at that point, wasn't
Yeah,
it? Yeah. The last of that sort of time in this of
that's right.
history, really, of corporation transport
Yeah,
legacy. That, yeah, gosh. So the depot then, I imagine, depending on what day you would come, would either be very empty or preparing for a busy night or.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you came down here on an illumination Saturday and it was a nice day, we used to have a fleet of about 75 trams then. There'd be about 3 or 4 trams left in the depot
Yeah.
on the really busy nights, because
Wow.
they'd literally get everything they could
Yeah.
out on the rails, and of course the bus drivers then were allowed to do the grab, as they called it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They do the 9-10 hour shift on the bus and straight onto the trams
Wow.
for another 3 or 4 hours just to do some illuminations runs,
Yeah.
and you'd stay out as long as was needed.
Yeah, all hands to the pump.
Yeah,
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 and that versatility between the different parts of the depot as well, connecting together, supporting each other, isn't it? Bus and tram. It's quite something, isn't it? As a
yeah.
network. It was interesting when you said about your dad when you were little, because we forget that buses used to have conductors.
That's right. Yes, yeah. I mean, and we were one of the last places, of course, to have them.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
were well into the 1990s. It was the 14, if I remember right, was
It's
the last
it
route.
still had them.
Yeah, and
Wow.
they were well into the 90s.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So
Yeah,
even then we were still having them.
yeah.
Wow.
I can't remember the exact year, but I got married in '94, and I'm sure it was probably thereabouts. Where
Yeah.
when I just remember it being the number 14, the last route
Yeah,
to use
I
them.
can imagine it because it's one of the busiest now with
Yeah,
college
yeah, and it
and
used to run Fleetwood to St Anne's as well in them days.
so yeah, big
So
route,
it
isn't it?
was a
That
long route. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And in terms of the depot, then you probably saw it at its prime as well, and in terms of
Yeah, I mean, the maintenance on these trams was second to none. There'd always be
Yeah.
4 or 5 trams in the workshop. The With the balloon cars, there always tended to be one on a heavy overhaul, so it would not appear for the whole season.
Right. Yeah.
You'd find there was always one missing each year, but it'd always be back out the next year. I
Yeah.
think there was obviously a cycle as to
Yes.
which one would be taken out.
Yeah.
But the rest of the fleet would always be there, and like the twin cars, because they were only really used from about July onwards. They were nearly all available, all 7 of those,
Yeah. Yeah.
for the main part of the season.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, Tuesdays, of course, was always a popular day with the Fleetwood markets.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they'd try whatever possible to everything to Fleetwood.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Capacity, demand, absolutely, isn't it? Try and match the two.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so, what was it that your dad did? Was he a guard or
he,
a
he was
driver?
just a driver. He did
Yeah.
become an inspector for a while, but he didn't like that. He
Ah.
he
Yeah.
just he preferred to be doing the driving rather than. I mean, the inspectors were very strict then, and you know, proper tellings off
Oh.
for different things.
Yeah, I've already picked up in some of the interviews about the numbers. Yeah, the people had numbers and so
Mm.
on as well.
Oh
So
six
yeah,
eight four was my dad. I always remember that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It does feel regimented, doesn't it, in
Yeah,
that sense? Yeah. So 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 did you say that your dad also he would drive buses and then he would obviously be driving the trams as well?
trams. Yeah,
So was that as a core role where he was doing both separately or as an overflow almost on at busy
just
times?
an overflow, like I say, on the overtime, and I would sometimes come out for with him again just for a ride, and I mean, you'd be shot at nowadays for this, obviously, but it'd be a case of you want to help me turn the trolley and things like that, and
Yeah, yeah.
I'd be there helping him.
Keeps you young, you see, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
or standing in the cab, which
yeah, yeah.
you just we wouldn't even do that nowadays
No,
in any
no, no.
you just absolute no. But it's just the
Absolutely.
way things were then.
Yeah, yeah. It had. It definitely comes across as of a family culture as well within this. There was some flexibility. You can see how people connected, and it definitely was a family business, wasn't it? Whole families worked here.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. There were a lot of husbands and wives worked, and I never know why I didn't bother applying for a seasonal conductor's job because, of
Yeah.
course, that was always the opportunity students had.
Yes. Yeah.
But for some reason, I didn't do it. I was working at the tower,
Yeah.
and I just continued to do so until I got my proper job. So I just don't know why I never did it back then.
I,
Considering I'm doing it now,
no, do it
nearly
now.
40 years later.
Yeah. Well, I have a theory that you learn different things when you're tiny, and this thing gets in your DNA, and you go, oh, I really like that. And then you become like a teenager, and then you sort of discover life and girls or boys, whatever, and then you forget about all those things that you enjoyed. Then you go through life, you're paying your bills, but then eventually there's a certain point in your life where it all comes back again. Those times when you were little, because they were lovely times or comforting
Hmm.
times. And we see that a lot with visitors. It's sort of they say, oh yeah, there was a gap. I used to come in the '90s. I used to come in the '80s with, and they list the people who are no longer with them, and they're here almost on a bit of a mission to reconnect a bit with their past. And I think there's that's in all of us, isn't it? That yeah, you and it's brilliant, and I think not at all ironic, but almost makes logical sense that you have come back in a way
Hmm.
to a place that yeah you were very much invested in.
Yeah, it's just a shame, my dad died like 17 years ago now. Like he couldn't see what I was doing. But I'm sure he's looking down at me, proud to say, I knew you'd do it one day,
Yeah,
son, sort of
I bet he did.
thing.
I bet he always knew you'd come into it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it doesn't leave you, does it? It doesn't leave you.
no, no.
Um, and in terms of your dad, when did he retire from the
He had to
business?
retire with ill health in the end, in the late 80s,
Ah,
about 88, 89. He started suffering with his breathing,
ah,
and he'd had a blood clot as well, so that initially put him off sick.
yeah,
Uh, and yeah, I mean, he just deteriorated from there. He did live for quite a number of years afterwards, but Yeah, so it was about 88, 89.
Yeah.
I do have fond memories, and he was always well known, certainly on the bus side of things. He was a little bit notorious with incidents, shall I say. Uh, he it wasn't unknown for him to come with side panels of buses,
Oh, right.
and
Yes.
I've
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
known him do it with passengers on board. He's asked them to move to other seats while he brings a bit of a panel. I
Absolutely.
need to lay this here, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll take you to town, then I'm going to depot, sort of thing.
It's what you do, isn't it? Exactly. Yeah.
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 There were
Yeah.
none of these please explain and let's have a cup of tea in the office sort of things. And you just,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely crazy for the things that went on. And he had one bus once at Cleveland's bus station. It was one of the old single deck Swifts, and I was with him, and we're leaving Cleveland's, and I says, I think the bus is on fire, Dad. He says, what do you mean? I says, there's a lot of smoke coming out of the back. And we just left Cleveland's bus station. These flames were coming out of the engine at the back.
Oh my word! Like it's been rocket.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my
I think
word.
it were only a build-up of oil. It looked more serious than it actually was in the
Yeah.
end. The fire extinguisher put it out, but just things you remember
Oh,
from your childhood.
absolutely. Yeah.
And
And for you, you must have been so proud of your dad to that he's involved in these. Yeah, because it is an exciting world. His transport.
it is. It is definitely. Yeah.
And what was sort of one of your dad's favourite memories of working here? Did he ever say?
That's an interesting one. I know he had his favourite trams. He used to like being on the open boat trams a
Oh,
lot.
did he? Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
because he loved out being out in the sun.
Yeah,
So the open boat trams, that would always be his first choice if he could.
yeah.
But the ironic thing is, this is a bit of a standing joke with me on Heritage. As a passenger, and even since I've worked on Heritage, to this day, I have never had an open boat tram to Fleetwood Ferry.
Oh, really? So
So,
you've never been able to follow in
in any capacity.
dad's steps?
So it's a little bit of a joke with some
Yeah.
of the other conductors that I've yet to have one. So
Wow.
if Gary or Martin's listening, please can I
Yeah.
have a boat to Fleetwood one day?
Can we make this happen, please? Just for Andy, exactly. Yeah, connecting with his past here, exactly. Yeah, that's a must, isn't it?
Yes.
And preferably on a nice day, not a rainy day.
Oh, of course, yes.
Because I know one of our volunteers is also an operational driver as well, and works the operational team. I remember once last year he'd gone out a nice day. You know what Blackpool's like; it doesn't take long for it from being a nice day to being a very wet day. And it caught us all out, and we suddenly realised that poor Paul was out in this, getting absolutely soaked, and you can't reverse back. You've got to
No.
go until you can get back. Yeah, it's there are great things on a lovely day, though, aren't
Well, that brings me to another story. Again, just on the enthusiast point, but it was Fleetwood Tram Sunday one year, probably about early 90s. It was still when they used to actually go up and down Lord Street
they?
on Tram
Oh,
Sunday.
yeah.
And Bolton 66 was there, and scorching hot day. And again, towards the end of the day, and you could see the clouds starting to build up. And we knew that 66 was going back to North Pier with passengers, so we get some. And we got to about Ash Street, and the thunder and lightning started, and the rain.
Oh.
And I think the rain found every conceivable point it could come in on 66. We were on the top deck,
Yeah.
and we were still soaked. It was
Soaked.
just coming in everywhere.
Yeah.
But you had no choice by then. You just got to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
But, yeah, it was swimming when it got to North Pier.
I can imagine. Yeah, because when it rains, it really rains.
Oh, it really came down. That.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one memory I do have.
And if it was bad on the top deck, what was it like for the driver?
Yeah, because completely unprotected at the front.
Absolutely, yeah. It's beautiful tram again on a nicer day, I imagine. Yeah, gosh. So after this sort of gap, because obviously I mention that you run a Facebook page, don't you? A Facebook group, and that's
File
brings people
Coast Transport News. Yeah,
That's
so it's a private group, but people request to join if you've got interested in the transport side, and it's all about transporting the file, whether
Yeah.
it be past, present, or even future. And it doesn't have to be just trams and trains, it's all forms of transport.
And I'll put a link in the box below for everyone to find it.
Hmm.
But it draws people from all backgrounds together, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And so what made you sort of be that person that created that?
Well, I'd seen similar groups for other areas in the northwest. So we don't seem to have one for Blackpool. We've got one for like Blackpool Trams,
Yeah.
and you've got the different chat groups like Bispham Chat
Mm.
and so on. But there isn't anything what just sort of relates purely to all forms of transport on the file. And so I just went ahead with it. Just firstly invited people who I knew. I've always kept it as a private group, so you
Yeah.
have to request to join.
Yeah.
And it's grown to well over 200 members now. It got quite busy. A lot of interest was gained when the Blackpool railway line was closed for electrification work.
That's when I joined.
Right,
Yeah.
and people were interested to know what was going on and
Yeah. You were
what the
the only
work was.
place for really good news, or accurate
Yeah,
news.
well, that's it. I was getting my feeds from different people where I
Yeah.
could who worked on the railways, and I provided that output through the channel. So yeah, during that time, I probably had the most hits
Yes.
for that period. But it's steady now, and people put relevant posts on and that, and it's I still enjoy managing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's a nice group, isn't it? It's you've got people on there generally interested, and it's nice to hear things in other areas, geography of the field, but projects that you wouldn't necessarily be interested in. That's what I quite like about
no,
it. So it gives you a nice overview of what's happening.
and I like to use it as a way of promoting different transport events that are taking place, because
Mm.
we're quite privileged in the number of different events we have around here.
Yeah.
Like we've
Yeah.
got the Lytham Transport Festival coming up in a couple of weeks' time.
Mm.
Even things like the Bus Driver of the Year, which
Yeah.
takes place. And well, they're all of interest to some people in some way. And of course, whenever we have our own event weekends, always like to promote it through there.
Yeah, it does feel a positive place. And one of my frustrations, I think that everybody recognises, is that we've got great things in Blackpool, but some and the Fire, but they don't always necessarily talk to each other.
No, no.
And that can be physically with the infrastructure, across to literally just that communication. And so it's you feel a really big void.
I think that you make a good point there, because I mean, only last week when Fleetwood Tram Sunday was cancelled at the 11th hour, and there was a lot of miscommunication on social media, even within our local news groups. The Bispham chat and even the Fleetwood chat
Yeah.
were saying, "Where have you heard this sort of?" And
Ah.
they weren't believing it at first,
Yeah. Yeah.
and obviously, it caused a lot of anxiety with some people, and they couldn't understand. But it's one of those things. You need to know the real reasons behind it. It's not just a case of it being windy or not being windy. They've got to make a call at some point, and it's the insurance that
Absolutely.
matters.
Yeah.
Why it couldn't be run?
Definitely, and having run events myself in various parks, if you haven't got insurance cover, you just can't do it, because
No,
suddenly your house is at risk,
that's
and
right.
so
Yeah,
on. So no, it's a great site, and I think as well it demonstrates, Handy, that my thoughts really is that somebody like yourself, it's in the DNA, isn't it, really?
mm.
And there are so many ways that people can help, even if they're not necessarily in the industry as their paid job.
The best people, I think, to do jobs are those who've got a genuine interest in
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Whether it's in the DNA, like you say, those who are just sometimes put there
ah,
tend to just see it as a means to an end. But if
yeah,
you find someone with a genuine interest, you'll get that extra output from them.
yeah. That's right. Yeah, because they care, don't they?
They've got that. They care about it. They want to make sure the job is done properly and done to the best of their
Yeah,
abilities.
absolutely. So true, and that goes for any walk of life. That you know, and I always say that about managers as well. Actually, the best managers are the ones that care, not because they want to be the manager, just because if they think, oh, if this person does it, they're going to make a right mess of it.
Mm.
I can't see my dream project being ruined, so I'm going to have to step up. And it's they often come from different places, backgrounds, but they often tend to be the best managers because they care. So going back to yourself and where you are now, um, doing some amazing work as I say as a guard. Do you have any aspirations to drive at all, or
I would, but
yeah?
there's one big problem. I don't drive.
Ah, right. So you have to have a
you have
driving
you have to have
license.
a
I didn't
driving
know that. Ah,
license.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Otherwise, yeah, I would probably step up to becoming a driver. So, I'm 56 nearly now, and I know they always say you're never too old to learn, but I personally don't feel that I want to learn to drive now.
No, no, and
Uh,
but it probably also shows why public transport matters to you because you use it clearly to
hmm
get to places.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, it's not just a that's a nice to have. It's a absolute genuine need, and so therefore it needs to be the best,
yeah.
doesn't it?
My wife has a car, and my daughter, so it's not that we're a car-free family, but
Mm.
I just have to leave it with her to do that.
To do to do the heavy lifting in
Yeah,
those areas,
yeah.
yeah. But just it being a guard and I say it's huge work anyway, isn't it? For all the reasons you
hmm
said at the start. So so again, moving forwards, were you do they have like any upper age limit on how long a guard you can be a guard or
I really don't know with that the answer to that.
ah?
You
So
know, I
I'm
mean,
thinking if anybody else would like to join, we can put a link in the bottom of how they could do that. Um, but yeah, I imagine from memory, I think they do regular tests and so forth,
yeah.
don't you?
I think the adverts. I know there was an advert came out Easter time, I think it was. So we just got a new intake of
Yeah.
conductors finishing their mentored training, which will be helpful, ready for the illuminations.
Yes. Yeah.
So I would imagine, at some time in the future, further adverts will go out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and I do. I think I'm sure when it last came out, I did put a note on my Facebook page, to try and attract interest.
That's right. Yeah.
It'd be great for more locals. I think if we could get some more local people,
Well,
because a lot of our conductors drivers are from all over the country.
yeah. Again, a lot of
They're
people won't realise that these guys are not only volunteering, they're travelling a long way
travelling,
to get
yeah,
here,
yeah,
aren't they? To do it, which
yeah.
is from Scotland to
Oh, Scotland, South Coast, quite a lot from Yorkshire.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I'd like to see a few more locals, people who I know as well who are interested in the trams.
To make
come
that
on, come on
step.
board, make that step. I've done it. You can do it,
There you
and
are.
you
You
won't
see,
regret it.
absolutely. I think that's a really important thing, isn't
We're a
it?
really good family.
Yeah,
It's great.
because clearly, yeah, I think as I said before, you enjoy it, you learn a lot, but and most of all, you're putting something back that helps this town, doesn't it,
Yeah,
to perform? Because without just seeing a green and cream balloon just moving around behind you, without that, Blackpool would be so poor, wouldn't it? Without that
mm,
being on the promenade this afternoon, people will go, well, where are they? It is part of what they expect to see. It's part
yeah.
of what they want to see. Yeah, so we can be part of that.
Even sometimes, if I'm just out in the evening and we've not got any trams running, if I'm on an LRT and you'll hear them sometimes say, "Oh, I wish one of the old ones was out."
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
I do sort of bite me like this, like, because I don't want to say, well, unfortunately we haven't got enough people to do it
no,
all the time as much as we'd love to.
yeah. But that's right, isn't it? Yeah, the more volunteers we get, the more we can do,
Hmm
and the more we can offer. Because they literally cover everything, isn't it? So there's a coastal tours, promenade tours, fish and chip
Fish and
tram
chips,
tours,
ghost
ghost
tram,
tram, a
real ale.
real ale. Now
Yeah,
that's a popular one I
yeah.
hear as well.
Oh yes.
And then you've got the illumination
Hmm
ones as well, and then some extra. So when we know it's busy, and we've got, as you say, local volunteers, then we can have, I guess, the flexibility to put an extra boat out or
Yeah.
whatever. So yeah, the need's definitely there, isn't it? And I think you prove, Andy, that because we roughly started this at the same time, that it can make such a huge difference by getting involved.
Oh, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
And so I'm going to leave the viewers with this, and it's a hard question this to answer. But what's your favourite memory so far of being a guard?
My favourite memory so far being a guard, I think it's learning more about the operational side.
Yeah.
of things. Okay, I knew how the trams run and so on, but when you're actually on the inside, if you will, I'm picking up a lot more memories now, an interest in the operational side, and just meeting a great enthusiastic team
Yeah. Yeah.
who were there to help each other out, and when we get the call for, we need a conductor for such a shift and so on,
Uh,
and it's getting like a day before, there's always the rabbit pulled out the hat.
yeah. Yeah.
We've got that can do attitude,
Brilliant.
and there's been the odd time where I've said to my wife, "Oh, they need me tomorrow night
Yeah.
to do an illuminations," and she might have been a bit disgruntled, but she accepts what I'm doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're
And
right, isn't it? Yeah, having family buy-in is crucial, isn't it?
mm,
In to this, and I imagine you go home and you'll say, "Oh, we did this, we did that," and she must appreciate or enjoy
yeah,
hearing you
she'll
happy.
because there are some nights. It's like all jobs. Some days are better than others, and some days you'll have had a real stinker of a shift, whether it's because of the weather
Yeah,
or
yeah,
just one passenger else happens to just
yeah,
upset you that little, not saying maybe upset you, but annoy you that little
yeah,
bit.
yeah.
And it's not for anything you've done.
No, no.
It's usually at the end of the day something they've not done or not listened to.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
I had one passenger once who we've been at North Pier, but people are lighting off the illumination, so we've been there nearly 5 minutes. And then when we got to Pleasure Beach, why did you not stop at North Pier?
Oh,
And I said, we were there for 5 minutes, and another
yeah,
passenger was saying, backing me up, saying, yes, we were.
yeah.
And she'll probably just been too busy nattering
That's it. And
or whatever.
miss that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I know in the world that I'm in, yeah, you can definitely never please them all the
No,
time. But you just grin and bear it
yeah.
and smile
Well,
away.
99.9% are great.
Yeah, they are, aren't they? We see that they're just and the trams do it for us, don't they? They people go into that time zone of earlier parts of their lives or happy moments, and you're part of their
Mm.
holiday experience. That must be a lovely feeling.
And a lot of passengers do say that, how it brings about so many childhood memories for them.
Yeah.
And we do get a form of some ex-drivers from the 1950s and 60s. It does happen, the really old people now.
Wow.
And,
Yeah.
I used to drive this in 1964 and all that.
Wow. So you've got a new mission now. You must collar their email address for me or telephone number. I need to do an interview with them.
Yeah, it'd be
But
good for you to get some retired drivers like that.
could you
So,
imagine? Could you
yeah,
imagine? But no, well, thank you so much, Andy.
no,
That's brilliant. That is
been
brilliant.
enjoyable.
Yeah, and thank you for what you do as well. Without good people like yourself, we wouldn't be able to run these amazing trams when we need them, and Blackpool would be so much poorer. And without that, we wouldn't be anywhere near where we are with the Tram Town
No, and
redevelopment of the site.
I'm really looking forward to the next 5 years as
Oh,
to how this is going to change,
yeah.
and I must ensure I get some photographs of it
Oh,
before it all changes.
absolutely. Yeah. I think we were going to plan a big sort of farewell weekend of organising events and so
Mm,
on, pictures, everything. So it's so important we record it, isn't it?
of course, because once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah, and we capture this is what it was like, this is its journey, and success looks like for me is we don't lose that smell, that feel
Mm,
of what makes this place work. Otherwise, it'll just be very sterile, and that won't work. And as long as we've got engineers working here, restoring and rebuilding trams, it'll never lose that
no.
because engineers are just that. They'll always bring a bit of a mess with them. A bit of an oily rag will always appear, and that to me brings it alive.
Yeah, it it's not got that sterile look as if you like go around a modern.
Yeah,
You just go around Stargate, even. I compare that to here.
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
it's functional. It's doing what
Mm.
it's supposed to do, and it meeting all the modern safety
Yeah,
requirements of the day. But it's also good to see how we got the old pits
yeah,
and that, and they still have to go underneath and check the brakes before a tram goes out. And
yeah.
the old-fashioned way. There are no computers to
Uh,
check things. And
No,
Yeah.
no plugging anything in and doing a
No,
diagnostic
no.
test, is there?
And at least we, if our trams get too hot, we can turn the heating off, where you can't on an LRT.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, definitely biased, but these are better.
Oh, without a doubt.
So, well, thank you so much, Andy. It's been
Okay.
really good to see you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you again for what you do. Honestly, you do some amazing work. And if you would like to do an interview like we've done today, or be part of the Tram Chats, just message me in the box below, and then we'll organise something on a tram of your choice, and we'll capture your story for the future. And thanks again, Andy. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.